Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 23 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. How are you all doing this week? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. I hope that everything is okay in all your lives, and if not, I hope that this show provides a brief respite from whatever it is that you're going through. I got a good show for you guys this week, but before I get into it, I went to go see the latest. A few days ago, I went to go see the new Mission Impossible movie, and it's great. It's awesome. There are two major obviously with these movies there are major stunt sequences in these movies, and there are two really big ones in this one, and one of them has been shown in the trailers. It's the biplane sequence, and that's awesome. But there's also this massive underwater sequence involving a submarine that you really I was just like sitting on the edge of my seat going like, oh, just like, oh my god, like this is spectacular. It's a gigantic sequence, and it's I would say, I mean, both sequences are great, but I would say that I think the submarine sequence is more breathtaking, and it's a great movie. It's a great, I the Mission Impossible film series is based on the TV show, which I've watched, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy the TV series. But when it comes to the Mission Impossible film series, the Mission Impossible films specifically are, I feel like I've grown up with these movies. I was 12 years old when the first one came out, and I remember watching it on VHS. Remember that, kids? VHS. And I've seen everyone since in the theater. I saw the second one with my dad, which I think the experience of sharing, I think sharing that experience with my dad was better than seeing the movie. Mission Impossible 2 is not very. It's probably, I think it's the only bad one in the bunch. But growing up with these movies, it was very special and very kind of bittersweet, kind of emotional to see this send off. It's a great send off. The movie's great. I said to my wife Katie, I said, I think, not to take away from the greatness that is this Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, I think there are a couple Mission Impossible movies that I personally enjoy more, but that's not to take away from the greatness of this one. And I know that Tom Cruise has said, like, this is it. They don't call it The Final Reckoning for nothing. I don't know, even if they were going to, I don't know, because the stakes in this new one, The Final Reckoning, the stakes in this one are so high that, like, even if they were going to do another one, how do you increase the stakes in the next one? Personally, I think this is a great send off. If this is the last one, it's fantastic. It pays homage to. It's interesting because it pays homage to all the other Mission Impossible movies, but at the same time, it's its own thing. Um, I loved it. I loved it. So I just wanted to say that. Um, Before I get into the show, I just want to remind everybody that if you like this show, uh, if you like the content on this show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, spread the word, tell your friends about the show. Also, if you have a comment or a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started here. And I want to start off with this. So, there's an upcoming, um, excuse me, there's an upcoming legal thriller coming out that will be directed by Chloe Domont. Um, this article is on Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. And this article says that Emmy and Golden Globe nominee Andrew Scott has joined Michelle Williams and Daisy Edgar-Jones in Chloe Domont's legal thriller, A Place in Hell. This article goes on to say, I should say that this article doesn't really give too many details about the story, but this article does go on to say that the film is written and directed by Domont. The film follows two women at a high-profile criminal law firm. Okay, so there's not much to go on here, but I will say this: I really enjoy. I was looking specifically legal. I've literally seen hundreds of movies, and sometimes when it comes to certain genres or subgenres of genres, I can't remember what I've seen, and sometimes I actually have trouble. Like, what would you define as this genre or this genre? So I really enjoyed legal thrillers, and there are a number that I've seen. Even though it's more comedic, I love My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny's great. The Hurricane with Denzel Washington, that one's great too. A Few Good Men is great. Philadelphia, which is I would say one of the greatest legal thrillers. There's one that I love, and the script is so good. It's The Verdict with Paul Newman. It's great. It's one of those movies that you have to pay attention. Like, the script is and the dialogue is so crisp and so, like, you got to pay attention. There's another one. It's a little cheesy, but Devil's Advocate. Let's see what else. Aaron Brockovich. Aaron Brockovich is great. Michael Clayton, I would say, with George Clooney. Michael Clayton is great. So I really love legal thrillers. So even though there's not much to go on here, I just wanted to get that out of the way. The other thing is Michelle Williams. Michelle Williams being in this movie. I don't know too much about the other cast members, but I will say Michelle Williams, and again, I've mentioned this before. I grew up watching. I watched Michelle Williams on Dawson's Creek, and I have no shame in admitting that. And she's gone on to be an Oscar caliber actress. I really have enjoyed the projects that she's done, and her performances. She was in a movie called My Week with Marilyn, where she played Marilyn Monroe, and it's so good, and she is fantastic in that movie. So I'm a really big fan of Michelle Williams. She's been in a bunch of other stuff too. What was the movie that she was in with Casey Affleck? I'm blanking on it now. It's gonna bug me. Manchester by the Sea. Yeah. That's it's a little. That's a rough watch, but it's really good. So I'm a big fan of Michelle Williams, and I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of this genre. So even though there's not much to go on here, what I can say is that Michelle Williams being in a legal thriller intrigues me. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the other two cast members, but I'm looking forward to this, and I'm looking to see what I'm looking forward to finding out more story details on what the story is going to be. So, jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on this. So this next bit of news is interesting. So there was this back in 2019. There was this horror movie starring Octavia Spencer called Ma. And it got mixed reviews. But it was, I made a little note here. It made $61 million on a budget of $5 million. So it was, even though it got mixed reviews, it was a financial success. And actually, I own the movie. I haven't watched it though, probably because of the mixed reviews. But it was a financial success. So this we have there's something. This article is on. Sorry, I'm struggling with my words a little bit. This article is on Variety, published by J. Kim Murphy. And the article says, "There's more Ma on the way. Blumhouse is developing a sequel to its 2019 revenge thriller, with Octavia Spencer reprising her role as the eponymous killer. The project remains in early stages with no director attached or a release date yet." So yeah, Ma is getting a sequel. Now, the original film was based, it was about, Octavia Spencer played this woman who felt lonely in her life, and she befriends a group of teenagers and lets them party at her house. And naturally, being a horror movie, once she invites them over, shit gets crazy. I should watch it. So it was directed by Tate Taylor, who directed The Help, which is great. So this is interesting to me. Well, first of all, I need to watch the original, seeing as how we're getting a sequel. What's interesting to me, given how financially successful the original Ma was, what's interesting to me is that it's been like, why hasn't there been a sequel sooner? I guess. I don't think it matters. I mean, we've seen sequels to movies that are 30 years old. I'm merely stating, like, it's interesting that I mean, we've seen sequels to movies that are 30 years old and been huge hits. So, it's, given how financially successful the original Ma was, it's interesting that they've waited this long to do a sequel. That's merely what I'm saying. So I love Octavia Spencer, and I've seen the trailers for the original Ma, and it looks great, and I like seeing. It's always great to see actors and actresses do something unexpected, and that was what I got from watching the trailer for Ma. I was like, oh, I never thought that I would see Octavia Spencer in starring in a horror movie. That never. And so I was immediately intrigued by that, and she's one of my favorite actresses. And so, what I can say is that I like that it's getting a sequel. I haven't seen the original. All I can say is that I know it got mixed reviews. Hopefully, the second one is better. I will watch the original and form my own opinion, but hopefully the sequel is better, critically speaking, I suppose. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are. Have you seen the original Ma? Are you looking forward to a sequel? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. So we have some Marvel Cinematic Universe news, some MCU news. There's this Marvel Disney Plus series coming called Vision Quest, which is it sounds like it's going to be kind of a pseudo sequel to WandaVision. And we have some casting news regarding that. Now, what's interesting about this is that how do I want to say it? Let me read the article first, and then I want to get into what I have to say. So this article is on Variety, published by Adam B. Very. So this article says that Marvel Studios' spin-off series about Vision has landed Schitt's Creek star Emily Hampshire as Edith, the Stark Industries artificial intelligence introduced in 2019's Spider-Man Far From Home. So for those who don't recall, Edith was the AI security and defense system that was created by Tony Stark. That was in that pair of sunglasses that Tony gave to Peter Parker in Spider-Man Far From Home. And I forget who voiced Edith in the movie. Okay. And this is what I was this is why I find this interesting. Hold on just a second. I'm terribly sorry. So in Spider-Man Far From Home, there's an actress by the name of Dawn Michelle King who did the voice of Edith. So, and then the sunglasses were confiscated by Mysterio in Far From Home, and stuff went awry. Chaos ensued. So this is interesting because this article does go on to say that it's unclear whether Hampshire is just lending her voice to the role or will be embodying it as well. But the character will be one of several AI to populate the series. So we have, I talked about last week. Um, it seems like various AIs are going to be in this Vision Quest series. Now, the reason I bring this up, the thing that I wanted to talk about is that it's interesting that the character of Edith is being recast. Because in Spider-Man Far From Home, Edith, there was just the voice. Now, I I'm merely speculating about this, but seeing as how Emily Hampshire has been the character, the voice of Edith has been recast and will now be done by Emily Hampshire. I'm wondering if we're going to see Edith not just in voice but in person. That could be interesting. And maybe there have been repercussions regarding the fallout that happened in Spider-Man Far From Home. But Edith, the character, the and we did see Jarvis become Vision. He became a conscious being. So I think we could see Edith as a physical consciousness. I think that could be I'm merely speculating, but I'm speculating simply based on the fact that the character of Edith has been recast. I could be completely wrong. But I think I like this idea of various AIs going toe to toe with each other in this Vision Quest series. I like that. I think it's leaning. It sounds like it's leaning more towards science fiction than even WandaVision was. If you want to call WandaVision was more sci-fi fantasy, but various AIs going head to head. I mean, that was kind of that was part of what I liked about the Avengers Age of Ultron movie, was that you had Jarvis and Ultron duking it out, on an art on a the two AIs fighting, like before Jarvis became Vision. Jarvis and Ultron were fighting on a artificial intelligence level, like they weren't even, so I don't know. I mean, this sounds really interesting. I would love to be right about this, because that, just various AIs battling each other, that sounds really cool to me. But again, this is merely speculation on my part. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on the possibility of maybe Edith becoming a physical being. Do you think that could happen? What are your thoughts about this? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. So this next bit of news is interesting. So when I was a kid, I was a big, I love to, I'm very proud that I was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s, because the television that we got in that era was crazy good. And especially the Saturday morning cartoons that we got. And one of my favorite cartoons as a kid was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And I it was weird, and it was cheesy, but I loved it. Now, of course, the that animated series, there was a 1978 movie, a live action movie called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and it's not good. It's cheesy, but it's like objectively objectively not very good at all. And then there was in 1988 there was Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which actually um, George Clooney, that was an early one of George Clooney's earliest films was Return of the Killer Tomatoes. That was he had a mullet in that movie, if I remember correctly. And then there were two straight to DVD sequels to Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which I have not seen. And of course, the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes animated series was based on the movies. So, I look. I fully acknowledge that the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes franchise is objectively cheesy and objectively not very good, but I still love it. I mean, I would love to meet the creator of this franchise and just be like, "What were you on, and can I have some?" So, there is a bit of news regarding this Attack of the Killer Tomatoes franchise, if you want to call it that. This article is on Joe Blow, published by Cody Haman. And I want to make sure. Let me see here. Okay, so this article says Deadline has announced that a new entry in the franchise, titled Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Organic Intelligence, is set to receive a limited theatrical release this Halloween, courtesy of Anchor Bay Entertainment. And we don't have to worry about this project falling apart because it has already wrapped production! Exclamation mark. So, this is, I guess it's going to be a reinvention of the franchise. Okay, so this article does continue on. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Organic Intelligence is being referred to as a reboot simply because it's the first Killer Tomatoes movie to come along in more than 30 years. But the cast list makes it clear that this is actually a sequel to the existing films. Okay, so that's cleared that up. Released in 1978, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was followed by Return of the Killer Tomatoes in 1988. Killer Tomatoes Strike Back in 1991. That's the first DVD movie, straight to DVD movie. And Killer Tomatoes Eat France. Killer Tomatoes Eat France in 1992. That's the other straight to DVD movie. The sequels and the animated series, which ran for 2 seasons, from 1990 to 1991, brought in John Astin as the villainous Professor Mortimer Gangrene, a.k.a. Dr. Putrid T. Gangrene. And Astin reprises the role in the new film. Okay, so that's cool. Directed by David Ferrano, from a screenplay by former franchise star J. Stephen Peace and Costa Dillon, who crafted the story for the original film and returned to co-write all of the sequels, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Organic Intelligence is set to pit the eternal power of nature against AI's best and brightest. Awesome. Awesome. This sounds look, I okay, so oh god. Costa Dillon has said, "This time they're not just back, they're organically intelligent," said Dillon. "We are just going to keep trying until we get it right," added Peace. "This is nuts," quipped Farino. "I have to work with these guys." God. Okay. So, look, a theatrical release come Halloween, sign me up. I hope it gets released in an area where I'm allowed to see it. And quite honestly, if it wasn't being released in theaters, then I wouldn't even be talking about it. Look, again, I fully acknowledge that this franchise is objectively horrible. Uh, but it's just one of those, like, people talk about bad movies that are still just entertaining to watch. And that's how I feel about these Killer Tomatoes movies. And I mean, and who knows? Like, I just want to see giant tomatoes wrecking shop, giant Killer Tomatoes wrecking shop. I think in one of the straight to DVD movies they actually had faces, which was oh god. That'd be cool if they had faces in this one. That'd be I'm a sucker for this stuff. Just give me you know what? I would like to see them. I would like to see it lean more into horror too. That could be cool. That could be really cool. Look, this movie's probably not going to be any good, but if it gets released in a theater near me, I will definitely go to see it. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I God, I have no idea what to say about this. What else to say about this other than bring it on. I just want to see Killer Tomatoes attacking people. That's all I want in life. That brings me joy. so so Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, organic intelligence, and go. Your thoughts. So I just wanted to talk about this for a minute, and like I said, if it wasn't getting released in theaters, I wouldn't even be talking about it. So there you go. So this next bit of news, the story behind this piece of news is a little convoluted. So just bear with me for a minute. So let me see. In 2023, okay, so I'm trying to think of best how to explain this. So I'm guessing that all of you are familiar with the more recent Halloween movies starring an older, more experienced Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode. And these newer movies have completely erased all the other sequels, and these movies are what they call legacy sequels to the original Halloween movie. So, David Gordon Green, who was basically in charge of, who basically shepherded those Halloween movies, the legacy sequel movies. In 2023, he got his hands on The Exorcist. Now, I personally consider The Exorcist, the original Exorcist movie, is it's the greatest of all time, in my opinion. It's the greatest horror movie of all time. I would, there are a couple that are up there, but in terms of, in terms of how that movie raised the bar at the time when it was at the time it was released, and also, I still think it's incredibly disturbing to watch, and it's one of my favorite, and I just think it's the original Exorcist is probably the greatest horror movie of all time, and Max von Sydow was so good in that movie. And so in 2023, David Gordon Green, who shepherded the legacy Halloween sequels, got his hands on The Exorcist, and he directed this movie. It was basically going to be a legacy sequel to the original Exorcist, and completely disregarding the other sequels. Thank God. Well, maybe not thank God, because it was called The Exorcist Believer. And it got brutal reviews. And basically, this Exorcist Believer was going to be so basically what happened is that Universal Studios paid $400 million just for the rights to The Exorcist, I believe. And the Exorcist Believer was going to be the first in a planned trilogy of new Exorcist movies, and this trilogy was going to be a sequel trilogy to the original Exorcist movie, much like the new Halloween movies were. And that plan went to shit. The plan for that trilogy was scrapped because it financially flopped, and it didn't help that it got brutal reviews. And I haven't even seen it yet because I dearly love the original Exorcist movie so much, and I heard so many bad things about Exorcist Believer that I couldn't bear. I can't bear to watch it yet. Maybe if I have a glass of bourbon some night, I'll watch it, because bourbon makes everything better. But I can't. Anyway, so after all of that, it was announced in May of last year that Blumhouse Studios and Morgan Creek Films, they were going to try again with a new Exorcist movie. Now, this will not be a sequel to Exorcist Believer, thank God. But it would also not be a sequel to, as far as I know, it would not be a sequel to the original Exorcist either. It was described as a radical new take on the property. Now, what got me interested and actually very, very excited about this is that Mike Flanagan, who has adapted many Stephen King properties, he's working on a TV series, a streaming series based on Carrie, and he directed this. He directed a film adaptation of Doctor Sleep in 2019, I think, starring Ewan McGregor as an older Danny Torrance, and that movie is fantastic. I can't even put it into words. So in my mind, I had, if I put my filmmaker cap on, and this is someone, look, I admittedly I have not read the Shining book. I have not read the Doctor Sleep book. I intend to at some point. But I've seen the Shining movie 100 times, probably more. If I put my filmmaker cap on, I had an idea of what a sequel to the Shining movie would be. And the Doctor Sleep movie was, in my mind, the perfect logical sequel to the Shining movie. It was perfect. I loved it so much. Ewan McGregor is great. The callbacks to the Shining movie are fantastic. It's great. So, and Mike Flanagan directed that. And like I said, he's been adapting several Stephen King books. And Mike Flanagan is planning to... The reason I bring this up is Mike Flanagan is... one of his planned Stephen King adaptations is The Exorcist. So, but there has been some unfortunate news regarding Mike Flanagan's Exorcist movie. This article is on the Hollywood Reporter, published by Ryan Gajewski. Let me see here. This article says fans of The Exorcist might feel their stomachs turn a bit upon learning that Mike Flanagan's planned film could take longer to hit theaters than expected. The filmmaker took to Tumblr to respond to a fan's question regarding whether his new movie in the franchise is still moving forward. The Hollywood Reporter reported last year that Flanagan would be writing, directing, and producing a new project in the Exorcist universe for Universal Pictures that was scheduled for release on March 13th, 2026. A cast has not yet been announced. Flanagan explained in his post that his first priority is his Carrie series for Amazon MGM Studios that adapts Stephen King's 1974 novel. Production hasn't started. We need to finish Carrie first, Flanagan wrote. No way it's coming out next March. Nothing to worry about, though. This article also points out that Universal removed the film from its 2026 release calendar and replaced it with an untitled Blumhouse movie. Okay, so here's what I take away from this. Is that, he said there's no way it's coming out next March. Nothing to worry about, though. That says to me, oh, I'm still doing it. I've got other priorities, though. We got to finish Carrie first. He says we need to finish Carrie. Okay, and then that doesn't. What he said in his post doesn't say it. It doesn't strike me as we're having trouble with the production. We're having creative differences. I don't get that from what Mike Flanagan said. My understanding is he's saying, oh, I'm still doing it. I just have other things to work on first, but it's gonna happen, and that excites me. Mike, I have such I cannot even tell you how much I love the Doctor Sleep movie, and to hear that he's doing The Exorcist excites me beyond belief. You know, and he just his new film, which is based on another Stephen King story, The Life of Chuck, uh, just got released this past weekend, and it got great reviews as well. So I think he's working on Carrie, and then I think he's doing The Dark Tower, which thank God he's doing that, because that movie was not good at all. Um, so it just sounds to me like, look, he's got other priorities, but it's gonna happen. I'm still doing it, and I cannot wait for this. I have no doubt that it's going to be great, simply based on his history adapting Stephen King material. And you know, I would say I have not read, and I don't plan on reading every Stephen King book. There are a few um, that I am interested in reading. I recently bought the uncut version of The Stand, which I will get around to at some point. I'm you know I took a look at the book, because I bought I like buying the physical copies of books. Call me old school, but I took one look at the book, and I was like, oh, this is going to take a while. Not that I'm complaining. I this sounds weird to say, but sometimes I look at how thick a book is, and I'm like, yes, this is going to take up so much time, and I love it, and you know, so much material, the thickness of the book, and I'm like, I need it. But anyway, so you know, there are a few Stephen King books that I plan on reading, but but I like. But anyway, so Mike Flanagan, it sounds like, you know, again, no creative differences, nothing wrong with the production. Just I'm working on other stuff right now, but it's still gonna happen. That doesn't disappoint me in the typical in a way that it would typically disappoint me. Okay, you have other creative stuff that you want to do first, but you're still going to do it. Okay, cool. As long as you still do it, you know, because I'm excited for it. And based on his history adapting Stephen King material, I'm excited for that. Um, and so yeah, I'm extremely excited to see what he does with The Exorcist. And given his history adapting Stephen King material, I think it's going to be great. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on this. Mike Flanagan doing The Exorcist. So this next bit of news is regarding an upcoming thriller movie from Amazon MGM Studios. This article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. This article says Amazon MGM Studios is in development on Allie Clark, a new thriller starring Oscar winner Viola Davis, who will produce alongside Rocky Oscar winner Irvin Winkler. Let's see. This article goes on to say Allie Clark takes us from the marble halls of Washington, D.C. to the sweltering bayous of Louisiana and the icy peaks of Alaska, following investigator Allie Clark, played by Viola Davis, as she embarks on a perilous inquiry into an international conglomerate following the suspicious death of a close friend. Philip Noyce, who directed Clear and Present Danger, which is great, will direct from a script by Jose Ruiz Sanchez and Irvin Winkler. Okay, so this sounds uh, kind of like a more embarks on a perilous inquiry into an international conglomerate following the suspicious death of a close friend. This sounds like a more thriller version of Aaron Brockovich. I could be way off base, but this what sounds like to me, and I love that. I love that. And I love that it's going to be this kind of uh, not really globe trotting, but I guess nation trotting affair. You know, Washington D.C. to Louisiana and Alaska. You know that sounds. You know, I part of the. I guess part of the what's so fun about watching movies is that a lot of times you maybe get to see places on screen that you typically wouldn't see in real life. So that sounds cool. Viola Davis is so good. Oh my god, she's another one of my favorite actresses. She has this ability to just disappear into every character she plays. I recently watched the. I recently watched again, I should say, the film adaptation of Fences, and she's great in that. She's so great in that movie, and you know she obviously won the Oscar for that movie. I love Viola Davis so much, and so the fact that she's going to be in a movie like this, it and she's going to be producing this movie as well. It's really, again, I'm such a fan of her. She's a chameleon, and the fact that she's going to be in this kind of a movie gets me very excited. So I can't wait to see this. So, and the fact that it's, you know, I know Clear and Present Danger was back in what, 94? But Philip Noyce directing this, that's a good sign as well. So yeah, you know, and she's in Viola Davis is an EGOT winner as well, and yeah, I just love her so much. This film sounds very this sounds very intriguing to me. What else did Philip Noyce direct? He directed Patriot Games as well. The Quiet American, you know. Yeah, so yeah, this sounds great to me. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about Viola Davis and her being in a movie like this. Excuse me. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I talked about there was this article that came out about this upcoming movie called Whalefall, that is going to star Josh Brolin about this person being swallowed by a whale. And we have some more casting news regarding that movie. So this article is on Joe Blow, published by Cody Haman. And let me see here. So this article, about a third of the way down, excuse me, says Deadline has broken the news that, sorry, that Austin Abrams from Wolves. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. So Deadline has broken the news that Austin Abrams and Josh Brolin are being joined in the cast by Elisabeth Shue, John Ortiz, Jane Levy, and Emily Rudd. Details on the characters they'll be playing have not yet been revealed. So let me see here. I want to make sure I get. If John Ortiz, yes, I wanted to make sure that John Ortiz was the, um, um, like I was thinking of the same person. John Ortiz is a wonderful character actor. I mean, he's been in a couple. He was in one of the Fast and Furious movies. He was in American Gangster, um, Silver Linings Playbook. He's great. So I'm not too familiar with Jane Levy or Emily Rudd, but Elisabeth Shue being in this movie, I really like her. She hasn't been in much recently. I feel like, and again, I could be wrong, but I feel like she's kind of been. I feel like she's maybe distanced herself from Hollywood and become very picky about the projects that she gets involved in. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all. If Elizabeth Shue has been in some Oscar caliber films. I mean, she was in Leaving Las Vegas, I can perfectly understand wanting to be protective of your name and be in projects that you're passionate about. Again, I'm merely speculating here, but she seems to be. I mean, she was in the original Karate Kid, or was it the original? Was it? Um, was it the original Karate Kid? Um, yeah, yeah, it was the original Karate Kid. She was like 19 or 20 years old when she was in that movie. So I can understand, but I feel like she hasn't been in much recently. So I mean, it's always I like her as an actress, so it's always nice to see her. That's my point. She was in this movie a couple years back. It was like one of these direct to Apple TV Plus movies called Greyhound, which is kind of this uh, submarine warfare movie with Tom Hanks, and it was written by Tom Hanks as well. I have not watched it, but I heard it was good, and I remember being pleasantly. I remember watching the trailer and be like, "Hey, Elizabeth Shue's in this movie," so I really like her. So I think Josh Brolin and Elizabeth Shue being in a movie titled Whalefall about someone being swallowed by a whale. I think there is when you hear the description of a movie like this, it kind of gives off there's a cheesiness aspect to that description. I think like oh god, this is going to be kind of corny. But I think getting an actor the caliber of Josh Brolin and an actress the caliber of Elizabeth Shue lends credibility to a movie like this. Like, oh, the script must be good. It must be really good for this kind of talent to be in a movie like this. So there's not much more to go on here. I really like John Ortiz. I really like Elizabeth Shue, and I'm a huge fan of Josh Brolin. And I think Elizabeth Shue being in a movie like this again adds credibility to a movie like this. So I'm looking forward to this movie. It sounds kind of crazy, um, you know, and so yeah, I don't really have much more to offer, other than other than that. I think that the kind of talent that's in the movie makes it. This movie might not be as cheesy as we think it is. So yeah, so Elisabeth Shue and Josh Brolin and John Ortiz, Whalefall sounds cool to me. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. So I've come to a point now in this week's episode. The next few minutes are going to be about something that I don't really like talking about. I said from the outset of this show that this is going to be. I said what this show is not going to be. And this show is not going to be about a bunch of. This is not going to be a TMZ-like show. I want this show to be about entertainment, legitimate entertainment news, casting updates, movie announcements, movie talk, just talking about movies and stuff. And I said from the outset, I don't want this to become a TMZ-like show. Oh, he said this happened to her, but now they're going back and forth. Blah, blah. That's BS to me. However, unfortunately, sometimes things happen in the entertainment industry that, in my opinion, affects movies that we want to see. And sometimes things happen that, sometimes things happen that can choose that, in my opinion at least, can affect whether we choose to financially support a movie or not. So the next few minutes are going to be about a couple of things that are difficult to talk about, but I feel that I personally feel are necessary to talk about. So, first of all, for those who don't know, Shawn Levy, who's a director who directed Deadpool and Wolverine, he directed Free Guy. I believe he directed Real Steel with Hugh Jackman. It was announced that he was going to do a Star Wars movie with Ryan Gosling. That was going to be, it's a standalone movie. It was going to take place after the sequel trilogy, but it wasn't going to be related to the sequel trilogy. It was going to be a standalone thing, new characters, it's going to be its own thing. It's going to be called Star Wars Starfighter. First of all, I can't get excited about Star Wars announcements anymore until I actually see trailers. That's just how I feel about Star Wars these days, because there have been so many announcements and then backtrack on those announcements. And anyway, so some casting news regarding Star Wars Starfighter has been announced, and that piece of news is this. This article is on Variety, published by Katzy Steffen. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. This article says Mia Goth is headed to a galaxy far, far away. The Pearl actor has joined the cast of Shawn Levy's Star Wars Starfighter, which also stars Ryan Gosling. Details of her role are currently being kept under wraps. Okay. So, for those who don't know, I want to make sure I get these dates right. So Mia Goth, like this article points out, was in this movie Pearl, which is it. There was these trilogy of movies called X, Pearl, and Maxine, and Mia Goth starred in those movies. So on while making Maxine, um, there there have been accusations since the filming of that movie by a background actor by the name of James Hunter, um, who claims that Mia Goth deliberately kicked him in the head and then verbally abused him on the set of the film Maxine. And James Hunter is suing Mia Goth. Now, this case is still under legal proceedings. Now, look, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I understand that there are. Excuse me, just a second. I understand that there are two sides to every story. I fully acknowledge that. I also believe that every accusation and allegation needs to be taken seriously. And all I can talk about is the accusations against Mia Goth. I can nothing is known as fact yet. But Mia Goth is being sued. And look, no one knows what happened except the people that were actually there. And I understand this cancel culture world that we live in is very strange to me, because I feel there are certain things. I look, I don't care. You know, I as a fan of the entertainment industry, I couldn't care less what my favorite entertainers do in their personal lives. For the most part. Physical abuse is not one of them. And I look again. I'm not going to sit here and tell you for a fact that this happened. All I know is that there are accusations against Mia Goth, and in my view, I can no longer financially support this Star Wars movie because Mia Goth is in this movie. It's very strange to me sometimes. You know, this cancel culture world that we live in now is very strange to me, because just because somebody says something you didn't like, you're no longer a fan of them. Okay, that seems weird to me. However, what isn't weird to me, in my opinion, is not being, I will defend this. If you physically assault someone, whether you're male or female, if you physically assault someone, again, these are merely accusations, but I firmly believe that every accusation and allegation should be taken seriously. and Mia Goth is being sued for physical assault. That says to me, and until it is proven otherwise in court, because I believe that intelligent people change their minds based on new evidence that comes to light. Mia Goth being in this movie is dead to me now. I cannot, until this lawsuit is done with, and unless Mia Goth is proved innocent, I can't financially support any movie that she's in, and I don't feel bad about that at all. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And there may be people out there who don't care. I wish that I was, I'm not one of them. Like, I care. I just you do shit like this, it can be pretty damaging to your career. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that really quickly. And again, sometimes these bits of news affects movies that we're interested in seeing, and the reason I talk about it is because it affects movies that I was interested in seeing. After all, this is my show. The other bit of news is really disturbing, that I wanted to talk about. And it's this. So, there was an expose published in Airmail. I believe it was Airmail. Yeah, it was published published a few days ago on Airmail. That contains interviews with 9 women who, for the most part, remained anonymous, and they allege and accuse. They allege that Jared Leto, Academy Award winner Jared Leto, by the way, nine women have alleged that Jared Leto behaved inappropriately with them more than a decade ago. And so this article is on The Hollywood Reporter, published by Chris Gardner. Now this has to do with, this is Jared Leto's representative's side of the story. In a new Airmail expose, Jared Leto's representative has denied that the actor engaged in sexual misconduct or inappropriate relationships with women. The investigative piece, published Saturday and written by the digital publication's senior editor Elena Cleverino, contains interviews with 9 women, the majority of whom are anonymous. They allege that Leto behaved inappropriately with them, and some say they were underage at the time they came in contact with the Oscar-winning actor, who for decades has fronted the popular rock band 30 Seconds to Mars. I won't go. One of the sources is a model named Laura LaRue, and I won't go into detail about the article. Goes into detail about what happened, what allegedly happened. and I won't go into it now. But it's disturbing. Now the reason I wanted to talk about this is, again, I understand that there are two sides to every story. No one knows what happened except the people that were actually there. And I believe that every allegation needs to be taken seriously. And Jared, and again, sometimes these stories affect movies that we're interested in seeing, and it can affect whether we are going to see them or not. And Jared Leto is, as of right now, going to be in. There's a new Tron movie coming later this year called Tron Ares, and Jared Leto is, as of right now, in that movie. Now, let me just say this: if this was one woman who alleged that this has happened, and if I want to be careful here, if this was one woman who said that this happened and nothing had come of it, if this was one anonymous woman who claimed that this has happened and yet nothing has been done legally or otherwise about it, this would be a little different. Not that I wouldn't take it seriously, it would just be a different scenario. But this is a case of 9 women alleging that this happened, accusing Jared Leto of doing this, and one of them goes into detail about what happened. Like explicit detail. And so this is and look, I have to say, I up until this point I am a fan of Jared Leto. I up until this point I was a fan of Jared Leto. Both as an actor and as a musician. I kind of like 30 Seconds to Mars. They're not one of my favorites, but there are a number of songs by 30 Seconds to Mars that I really enjoy. And I Jared Leto is a great actor. However, there's this situation where 9 women have said that this happened. And again, being underage when this happened at the time. And this, again, I want to be clear. Unless this is proven that, look, there are two sides to every story. I can't tell you for a fact that this happened. What I can do is have an opinion about what has been revealed. And my opinion is that I no longer have interest in seeing the new Tron movie. That movie is dead to me now. What I can tell you is that unless proven innocent, I am no longer interested in what Jared Leto does with his career as a musician or as an actor. I just don't care, because again, unless proven otherwise, Jared Leto's a scumbag to me now. That's all I can say. And I know that I know that some people might not care about that, but I do. So again, I never wanted this show to be about this kind of stuff. I only talk about this kind of stuff when it affects things that I'm interested in seeing. And these last two things that I just talked about do. So these are my thoughts about those particular matters. Um, and I just wanted to throw it out there. And, you know, look, if you think that I'm being a colossal asshole by having these thoughts, maybe we can have a civil discussion about this. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, unless proven otherwise, I am no longer interested in the Star Wars movie or this, you know, or Jared Leto. You know, he's, you know. So I just wanted to throw my thoughts out there about these two issues going on. So I just wanted to say a few things about them. And now let's move on to uh, things that are much more pleasant, shall we? So for those who don't know, there let's see here. In 2023, a feature film adaptation of The Legend of Zelda was announced, which I'm sure, as every video game to film adaptation does, I'm sure that excited many people. And you know, I was like, oh God, you know, like they better not. I want to be careful. I was always I mean, I liked Zelda. I liked The Legend of Zelda. I never I was more into Mario. A lot more into Mario, actually. I mean, the only Legend of Zelda games that I ever played were for the Nintendo 64. So there's that. So in 2023, the Legend of Zelda movie was announced. And I have to say, though, that and this article doesn't go into it, but the way the director of the movie described what he wanted the Legend of Zelda movie to be, I was like, okay, that sounds cool. That sounds like it could be good. And the movie was supposed to come out. The Legend of Zelda movie. Let's see. So basically, the Legend of Zelda movie has been delayed. It's been a few weeks later than the original release. This article was published on CBR. Published, I believe, 2 days ago. So it was initially set for a release on March 26, 2027. And this article says the film is now set to release later than previously expected, as announced in a statement by Nintendo icon Shigeru Miyamoto. The article goes on to say, "This is Miyamoto. For production reasons, we are changing the release date of the live-action film of The Legend of Zelda to May 7th, 2027. Miyamoto noted in a statement shared online. It will be some weeks later than the release timing we originally announced, and we will take the extra time to make the film as good as it can be. Thank you for your patience." Now, what's interesting about this is that this article does point this out. The delayed release date will now mean that The Legend of Zelda will avoid direct competition with another major video game adaptation. Just 1 week before the original release date, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 will be released on March 19th, 2027. Given how popular the Sonic the Hedgehog films continue to be, this could have had an impact on the debut weekend of The Legend of Zelda. Yes, it could have, because those Sonic the Hedgehog movies, I don't care what anybody says, those Sonic the Hedgehog movies are great. They're awesome. Um, so, um, it's what's also interesting is that the Legend of Zelda film adaptation is now taking. Remember, a couple of weeks back, I mentioned that it was revealed that Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars were being delayed. Well, now the Legend of Zelda movie is being released on the original release date of Avengers Secret Wars. So there's that. Um, so Wes, here's what's interesting, and here's what gets me looking forward to this movie. Actually, Wes Ball, who I believe I'm not sure if he directed all of them, but he was a director on the Maze Runner movies, and he directed Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I loved. I love the most recent. Actually, I love all of them, but Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was great. Wes Ball is directing the Legend of Zelda movie. So I'm looking forward to this movie because of Wes Ball directing. Delaying it because you want to get it as good as you can possibly be. Okay. If you need more time to get it right, take the time that you need. If you know, I've always said if something's important to the filmmaking process and you need to get it right, take the time to get it right. Especially if it's The Legend of Zelda. So it doesn't sound like there's any other production issues, creative differences, or anything like that. They just need time to get it right. And if you need time to get it right, then take the time. I'm looking. I hope this movie's good. Can you imagine if this is terrible? Oh my god. So, Legend of Zelda film being delayed because they need time to take it right. Okay, not too worried about it just yet. So, not much else to go on. Just a few weeks later than the original release date. Not too worried about it. So I just thought I would talk about it a little bit and get your guys' thoughts on this. Okay, so what's next? Okay, so this next bit of news is a bit of there is some. Let me see here. There's some kind of, I guess you would call, movie business, because after all, it is the movie business. Movie business news, like like news on the business side of things of the filmmaking. I guess is the best way to put it. So, this article is on Vulture. There's an article. There's two articles actually, and they have to do with the same thing. So, but the article that I'm talking about is on Vulture, and according to this report, it is official that Warner Brothers Discovery is going to split into two companies. I want to make sure, and this is on Vulture, published by Eric Villas-Boas. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So Warner Brothers Discovery is officially going to become two separate companies. And about halfway down in this article, it says it'll break down like this. David Zaslav, who is who is the current CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. David Zaslav will lead as CEO a new so-called streaming and studios company made up of WB Television, WB Motion Picture Group, DC Studios, HBO and HBO Max, including its international sports offering, WB Games, WB Tours, retail and experiences, business and production facilities in Burbank and Leavesden. The current CFO of Warner Brothers Discovery, Gunnar Weidenfels, will lead a new global networks company that includes Warner Brothers Discovery's sports and news television brands like CNN, TNT Sports in the US, and Discovery, European free-to-air channels across Europe, and digital operations like Bleacher Report and the Discovery Plus streamer. The split will be a tax-free transaction, and both streaming and studios and global networks, placeholder names we have been assured, will live on as publicly traded entities. Okay, so those are going to be the new companies. Basically, it's going to be Warner Brothers and this new company. Whatever this new company is going to be called. So I think this is good news because Warner Brothers as a company, they've got several projects coming and several projects lately. Warner Brothers has been doing very well as a company. Their television division, their movies, and what they've got coming with DC Studios looks great, sounds great. And now what's also interesting is that I believe this new company, it sounds like this article does say that this new company, whatever this new company is going to be, is going to consist of the broadcast, the network broadcast assets. And what's interesting about this is that I believe, if I read this article correctly, this new company will take on most of the Warner Brothers debt with it, which that doesn't sound too good. But maybe Warner Brothers could sell that company off to get rid of the debt. Who knows? And I think this is a very shrewd move. Warner Brothers has been doing very well lately. And I mean, let's face it, network television is pretty close to being dead. And it sounds like David Zaslav is making all the right moves to ensure its future and stability. So I think this is an interesting piece of news. I think it's considering how well Warner Brothers has been doing lately. I think this is a very intelligent move to make. So I just wanted to talk about this for a few minutes. There's some more. There's an article on Vulture. If you want to read the whole article. So there's that. This next piece of news is exciting and interesting. Let me see here. It's exciting. more exciting than interesting, maybe. I don't know. So this is concerning the new DC universe. That's the DC universe headed by filmmaker James Gunn and Peter Safran, who was the co-head of DC Studios with James Gunn. This article. So, first of all, when James Gunn announced I want to make sure I get this right. Excuse me. So in let me see here. When James Gunn announced the DC universe, his new DC universe, DC and DC Studios, James Gunn and Peter Safran. This was in 2023. They announced the first slate of the first phase, if you will, of films and television that would happen, and it's called Chapter 1: Gods and Monsters, and there were several. I want to make sure I get this right. So there were several films, and let me see here. There were several films that were that they announced for Chapter 1. And you can look it up. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with this. There were several films. Here we go. So there were several films that and TV shows that were announced for Chapter 1: Gods and Monsters. One of them, obviously, is the upcoming Superman movie. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Creature Commandos, and there are several other films and television shows that were announced for Chapter 1. However, there has been an announcement, but I'm not sure. Well, let me just read the article here. So this article is on Screen Rant, published by Andy Bebacht. And this article says that DC Studios is officially developing a new Wonder Woman movie, presumably as part of the DC universe. Currently, James Gunn's DC universe is working on Chapter 1: Gods and Monsters, with various movies and TV shows in the works based on the beloved DC characters. Let me see here. This article goes on to say, in a new interview with Entertainment Weekly, James Gunn addressed the status of Wonder Woman in the DCU franchise, as well as the prequel show Paradise Lost, which has been in development since 2023. Now an actual Wonder Woman movie is finally moving forward. The DC Studios co-CEO gave an update on Paradise Lost, saying progress is slow moving, but it's moving. Then Gunn confirmed we're working on Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's being written right now. Now, what's interesting, here's the interesting part. First of all, I'm excited about a new Wonder Woman movie. What's interesting about this is that a Wonder Woman movie was not announced as part of this Chapter 1: Gods and Monsters. It was not part of the official Chapter 1 announcement. Now, that could change. I mean, there was recently there was a Clayface movie announced recently that originally wasn't part of the plan either, but James Gunn said that the script was so good that they had to do it. So there is that. So just because this Wonder Woman movie wasn't part of the original plan, that doesn't mean that could change. But so here's I think and I don't like comparing things too often, because I look if I know that there are people who are upset that James Gunn and Peter Safran are reinventing and making a new DC universe, cinematic television universe. I know that there are people that are upset by that. I am not one of them. And here's why. If you can look at the DCEU, meaning if you look at the last DC film franchise, meaning from Man of Steel to Aquaman 2, if you can honestly look at all the movies in that film franchise, again from Man of Steel to Aquaman 2, if you can honestly tell me that film franchise lived up to its potential, if you can't tell me that it lived up to its potential, then you have no reason to be upset that James Gunn and Peter Safran are reinventing the wheel. Because now, if you do think it lived up, that it did live up to its potential, that's fine. I would tell you that you're wrong, but that's fine. Now, the reason I say that is because I believe that the first Wonder Woman movie starring Gal Gadot, I believe, was one of the few objectively good movies in that DC film franchise. In fact, I think it was great. So I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think James Gunn and Peter Safran are capable of making a Wonder Woman movie that at least is as good as that first Wonder Woman movie. Because that original Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot was great, I think that there is going to be comparisons of that movie to this new Wonder Woman movie. That's the reason why I bring that up. Whether that's right or wrong is up for debate. But I think because that original Wonder Woman movie was good, I think that there are going to be a lot of comparisons between that one and this new one. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to bring that up for argument's sake. But I'm looking forward to this. It's very clear to me. Look, in my mind, James Gunn has not. it's pretty rare that he's messed up. I think the only bad movie, and I wouldn't even say it's bad, it's just not that good, was Slither. Um, it was fine. It was entertaining, but specifically when it comes to his movies based off of his the comic books, the the, the, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are great. Um, the Suicide Squad movie that he directed was great. Oh my god. Um, so he is uh, clearly a geek at heart, and I'm looking forward to a, a Wonder Woman movie in this new DC universe, um, and I think uh, and again I um, just because it wasn't part of the initial plan doesn't mean that could change. That can't change, right? Um, but I'm looking forward to this. It's clear that they, I Superman, the new Superman movie is coming. I think the Supergirl movie has wrapped, but I could be wrong. But it's clear that they, and James Gunn has been very clear about the movies are not going to get made until the script has been what's the word I'm looking for? Unless the script is completed, unless he approves the script. Um, so that's good. Look, I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited about the future of the DC universe. A new Wonder Woman movie. That sounds really cool to me. And what is I'm interested and looking forward to seeing what kind of Wonder Woman we're going to see in this new DC universe, if that makes any sense. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited that a Wonder Woman movie got announced and yeah. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. So one last bit of news here this week. And this is again more on the business side of the industry. So this article is on Variety, published by Todd Spangler, and basically the headline, this article indicates that Disney now owns 100%. Disney 100% owns Hulu. Again, this article is on Variety, published by Todd Spangler. Let me see, where's the part that I wanted to read? Okay. After more than 2 years of haggling, Disney has finally closed its deal with Comcast to buy out NBC Universal's one-third stake in Hulu, and Disney is paying much less than it would have if NBCU had its druthers. In December 2023, in an initial payment toward the Hulu buyout, Disney agreed to pay $8.61 billion to Comcast. That represented one-third of the $27.5 billion guaranteed floor value for Hulu that was set when the companies entered into their agreement in 2019. The article goes on to say the two sides last year entered into arbitration to determine the final price tag. Excuse me. Now that number has been calculated. Pursuant to the contractual appraisal process that was completed on June 9th, 2025, an additional $438.7 million is payable by Disney to NBCU to purchase NBCU's interest in Hulu, according to a Disney SEC filing Monday. The acquisition of NBCU's interest in Hulu will close on or before July 24th, 2025, per the filing. The total price Disney will have paid for Hulu is approximately $9 billion, implying a valuation of $27 billion overall for the streaming company. If the price had been determined by the bank hired by Comcast to assess the value the Hulu stake, that would have resulted in an additional $5 billion payable by Disney. Okay, so I don't think Comcast is too happy about this. But look, I think, again, this is a very interesting and very shrewd deal. You know, we've already started to see, depending on your household, you can watch Hulu content, more mature content on Disney Plus. So we've already started to see that, and I think, you know, I think it's good for business that we are going to start to see more mature content on Disney Plus. And, you know, at some point, you know, I think at some point it was just bound to happen. But I think this is a good business move. I think, you know, I love being able to watch more mature content on Disney Plus, like the Netflix Marvel shows, you know, Daredevil and Punisher. You know, I love that. So I think this is good for everybody. Again, except Comcast. I think this is good for everybody in the long run. So I'm looking forward to seeing the kind of content that we're going to see in the future. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And yeah, so let me see here. Oh dear. Okay. So yeah, little business talk this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and this week, and I will be back next Saturday. So hopefully all of you have are continuing to enjoy the show. I know that I'm enjoying doing it. I enjoy expressing my thoughts and getting them, you know, getting them out there. So if you have any thoughts about anything I talked about this week, just let me know, or you know, or send me an email or whatever. And you know, I will have more to talk about next week. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends about this show. And you know, until next weekend, I will see you at the movies.